I squeezed the trigger and watched another man's life vanish through my scope at 1,400 meters. The mountain wind died just long enough for the .338 lap you around to fly true. His head snapped back like someone had yanked an invisible string. 1 second he was scanning the ridgeline with binoculars, the next he was meat on the rocks. I didn't smile. I never do. But the cold satisfaction in my chest felt like the only warmth left in this godforsaken war. My name is Jack Harlan. Ex-Delta Force sniper. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in places the government still won't admit we were in. Now I was back in the States, or what was left of them, fighting a different kind of enemy in the brutal mountains of western Montana. The cartel called themselves Los Lobos. They weren't smuggling anymore, they owned the territory. Meth, fentanyl, girls, guns. And they were wiping out every rancher and local who refused to bend the knee. I'd come here 6 months ago to disappear. Instead, I found myself protecting a stubborn alliance of mountain families led by Caleb Voss. Caleb was a hard man in his late 50s, built like an old oak barrel, with a voice that carried across valleys. His ranch sat in the shadow of Blackthorn Peak, the perfect defensive ground. But the Lobos wanted it. They wanted everything. I lowered my rifle and spoke into the radio. "That's number 14. They're getting bolder." A soft voice answered in my ear. "Copy. You okay up there, Ghost?" Riley Kane. The woman who refused to leave my side even when I told her this wasn't her fight. She'd cut her dark hair short, wore tactical gear like the rest of the boys, and moved like she was born in these rocks. Most people thought she was just another fighter in Voss's crew. Only Caleb and I knew the truth, she was mine. "Still breathing," I replied. "But they brought heavy stuff this time." I heard .50 cal chatter earlier. I broke down my position fast, sliding the rifle into its custom case and crawling backward through the pine scrub. Every second counted. The Lobos had their own shooters now, former mercenaries, ex-military washouts who knew how to hunt men like me. By the time I reached the secondary cache, Riley was waiting, eyes sharp under the brim of her cap. The tension between us was always there, electric and dangerous. "You took the shot from Eagle's Nest," she whispered, handing me a canteen. "Had to. They were scouting the weak flank." She touched my arm, just for a second. In this life, that was as close to affection as we got. "Caleb wants you back at the main house. Something's happening tonight." We moved down the trail like ghosts. The mountains here were unforgiving, steep, jagged, full of hidden draws and dead ends. Perfect for snipers. Perfect for ambushes. Back at the ranch house, Caleb Voss was pacing like a caged wolf. Maps covered the big oak table. His son, Travis, stood beside him, young and angry, still healing from a bullet he took 2 weeks ago. "They're bringing in someone big," Caleb said without greeting. "My contact in town says the head of Los Lobos operations in the Northwest is coming himself. Victor Salazar." The name hit like ice water. I'd heard of Salazar in the old days. He wasn't just a boss. He was a ghost story. Ruthless. Brilliant. Supposedly untouchable. He'd survived 3 assassination attempts by rival cartels and the DEA. Now he wanted Blackthorn Peak as his personal fortress. "He'll be here in 48 hours, Caleb continued. "If we take him out, the whole operation in Montana collapses." Riley's hand brushed mine under the table. I could feel her pulse racing. I leaned forward. "Distance?" "Roughly 2,100 meters from the western ridge if we can build a platform in the old fire tower," I said. "It's risky." "Exposed." Travis scoffed. "Risky? We've buried 22 of our people. I say we hit them head on." Caleb silenced him with a look. "This isn't a street fight, son. Jack's the only one who can make that shot." That night, the storm rolled in. Rain hammered the tin roof as Riley and I lay in the small bunk room we shared. She turned toward me in the dark, her fingers tracing the scar along my ribs. I'm going with you to the tower, she whispered. No. Jack? I said no. If something goes wrong, I need you here to get these people out. She sat up, eyes flashing. You don't get to decide that. We're in this together. You promised me after Denver. The memory stung. Denver was where I almost lost her. Where I realized I couldn't do this life without her anymore. I pulled her close. For a moment, the war outside disappeared. Just her heartbeat against mine. At 3:17 a.m., the first explosion shook the valley. I was on my feet before the sound finished echoing. Riley was already grabbing her rifle. They're attacking now. Travis shouted from the hallway. At least 30 of them coming up the south road. Chaos erupted. Men running, vehicles starting, orders being yelled. I grabbed my sniper rig and headed for the door when Caleb caught my arm. Jack. If this is the main push, Salazar might be watching from somewhere safe. You need to get to high ground. Riley looked at me, jaw set. I'm coming. We ran into the storm. The trail to the old fire tower was brutal in the rain. Mud sucked at our boots. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the ridges like daylight. I kept scanning for movement, heart hammering. Halfway up, I heard the distinct bark of a heavy machine gun. They were tearing into the ranch defenses. We pushed harder. I built the shooting platform in record time, lashing branches and old planks into a makeshift blind while Riley provided security. The wind howled. Rain lashed sideways. My hands were numb, but the rifle felt like an extension of my body. I settled in, eye to the scope. Through the night vision, I saw the battle below. Voss's men were holding, but barely. Then I saw him. A tall figure standing back on a distant ridge, surrounded by bodyguards. Even at this distance, I recognized the arrogance in how he stood. Victor Salazar. Jack, Riley whispered, fear creeping into her voice. There's movement behind us. I didn't have time to turn. A shot rang out from the trees. Riley cried out and dropped. I spun, rifle up, heart exploding in my chest. Riley was on the ground clutching her side, blood mixing with rainwater. A shadow moved between the pines, another sniper, one of Salazar's elite. I fired twice. The first shot splintered wood. The second found flesh. A scream cut through the storm, then silence. Riley. Talk to me. I'm okay, she gasped. Vest caught most of it. Go. Take the shot. I wanted to stay. Every instinct screamed to protect her. But below us, the ranch was falling. I swung the rifle back to the ridge. Salazar was still there, calm as death, watching his men overrun the defenses through binoculars. He thought he was untouchable. I adjusted for wind, elevation, rain. 2,137 meters. The hardest shot of my life. My finger tightened on the trigger. The shot cracked like thunder. Salazar jerked. His bodyguards swarmed him. I couldn't tell if it was a kill or a wound. But I'd hit him. Then everything went wrong. Jack! Riley shouted in warning. I turned too late. A boot slammed into my ribs. The rifle flew from my hands. 3 men had climbed up behind us, Salazar's personal killers. I fought like a cornered animal. Knife work. Fists. Elbow to throat. One went down gurgling. But the second man drove a knife into my shoulder. Pain exploded white-hot. Riley shot the third man point blank. We were both bleeding, exhausted, trapped on the tower as more Lobos climbed the ridge toward us. I grabbed my pistol. We have to jump, I said. The drop was 30 feet into rocks and brush. Riley looked at me, blood on her lips, eyes full of fire. Together. We jumped. The fall was brutal. Branches tore at us. I hit the ground hard, rolled, and came up firing. We ran deeper into the forest, pursued by shouts and flashlight beams. Hours blurred. We evaded. We killed when we had to. The storm hid our tracks but also made every step dangerous. At dawn, we reached an old hunting cabin deep in the wilderness. I barricaded the door and tore open the med kit. Riley's wound was ugly but not fatal. My shoulder was worse. We patched each other in silence, shaking from blood loss and adrenaline. That's when the second twist hit. Riley's phone, encrypted, satellite, vibrated on the table. A message from an unknown number. I read it over her shoulder. It was from Victor Salazar. I knew you'd survive, Harlan. Impressive. But your woman, she's been working for me for 3 months. The shot you took? I let you have it. A flesh wound. Now bring her back to me, or I burn everything you love. Riley's face went pale. Jack, it's not what you think. I stepped back, pistol still in my hand. The woman I'd trusted with my life. The one I'd fallen in love with in the middle of hell. She reached for me. They had my sister. They said they'd kill her unless I fed them information. I was trying to play both sides. I was going to tell you after we killed him. Betrayal burned worse than the knife in my shoulder. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to pull the trigger. Instead, I lowered the gun. We finished this, I said coldly. Then we settle us. We spent the next day planning. Pain and exhaustion made every movement torture, but rage kept me sharp. Salazar had made a mistake. He thought he broke us. That night, we moved on his temporary camp. I took the high ground again. Riley, despite her wound, provided distraction and close support. This time, there was no hesitation. My shot took Salazar in the throat as he stepped out of his armored SUV. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. His empire didn't die with him, but the head was gone. The surviving Lobos scattered. We limped back toward what was left of Voss's ranch as the sun rose blood-red over the mountains. Caleb met us at the gate. His face was grim. Travis had died in the fighting. But we had won. Riley stood beside me, pale and quiet. The betrayal still hung between us like smoke. I looked at her. Your sister? She's safe now. I made sure before we hit the camp. I nodded slowly. In this life, trust was a luxury. Love was a weapon. But as the mountains stood silent witness, I realized something darker. I still loved her. And that might be the most dangerous thing of all. We walked into the ruins together, two broken snipers carrying more ghosts than any person should. The war wasn't over. It never really is. But for today, the mountains belong to the living.